the next session. And without further ado, Matt Wright.
Well, thank you so much, Janice. Is everybody caffeinated? Ready to get on here? I just want to do a shout out to a gentleman at the back of the room there. That's Raul Pacheco. And he and I were just on Public Eye Online Radio this morning on CFAX with Sean Holman talking about this very topic, which is social media and politics. So by way of introduction, just so you know where I'm coming from, I come from both sides of the political spectrum, in a sense, which is community activism and also as a communications advisor for Keith Martin, who's a member of Parliament for Esquimalt-Londafuka. And for this gentleman right here, Barry Hobbs, if you just want to throw up your hand, I'm his campaign manager, and he's running for Victoria City Council in the upcoming November 20th by-election. So the groups I've been involved with directly, and we're kind of off the screen there, sorry, is the johnsonstreetbridge.org. I'm a director of that, and I've helped out with the Sewage Action Group as well. Being involved at both sides, of course, provides an interesting perspective, because as we and the members of the public get together on social media and complain about things that our governments are doing, I'm also, of course, involved on that side, and I'm standing on the other side and going, well, how do politicians react to that and engage? Or as my wife likes to say, getting involved leads down the road to unemployment. So the overall theme of this is what social media is all about. We're all a bunch of weak links. As we get onto Facebook and Twitter and comment on our blogs and things like that, we don't actually often know each other. And this is especially apparent in something that happened over the past couple of weeks with an article in the New Yorker, if anybody read that, by Malcolm Gladwell. Now, he's a bit of a pundit on social media, and he basically said that social media is not very good at social activism and politics. Nothing ever happens out of it. And a whole bunch of people replied to that, including a guy named Jonah Learher in Wired magazine, who basically said the opposite. There are plenty of examples of social media providing a platform for organization that's actually changed policy to a certain extent in governments, or at least forcing to react to it. What happens is with weak ties, they actually create a certain synergy and a greater level of trust, often better than strong ties. And strong ties, of course, are our natural personal relationships, our family, our business, the people we see day to day. So it turns out that our distant relationships aren't really just useful in getting jobs or spreading trends or just sharing information. As Jonas says here, as Malcolm Granovetter in his 1973 thesis basically said, they also help us to fight back against the man, or at least the redevelopment agency, and I've got experience with that. And I like his little quote at the end: the revolution certainly won't be televised, but it might just be helped along by Twitter. And if you want to read that, it's actually on the front page of Wired.com. So let's look at an example, and I want to bring it kind of home back to Canada. I know everybody likes to talk about the Obama campaign. It is certainly seminal in using social media as a political organizational tool during a campaign. But we have some direct examples here in Canada, one that happened just this year. Anybody guess what's coming up? Canadians Against Proroguing Parliament. This was started by one gentleman, one single Facebook page, Christopher Wright from the University of Alberta. He was angry about what the government did. They just basically stopped Parliament. And he created this page. And within a few short weeks, over 200,000 people joined it. And a few weeks after that, over 25,000 people across Canada came out to demonstrate. Now think about that. Here's one gentleman sitting in Edmonton, Alberta, got a little bit concerned about what the government was doing, created a single Facebook page, and through that, and through basically that alone, all these other people in different centres around Canada came together and used social media to organise and energise people to get out and protest. Now, they didn't actually change government policy, of course, but what they probably did do is teach us the definition of pro-rogue. And just to quick shout out here, this is the demonstration that happened in Victoria, January 23rd, and it brought out Keith Martin and Denise Savoy to speak at it. It actually had the highest per capita representation, probably largely due to the weather. So I'm just going to go back to the bridge because this is something that I have personal interest in, and I can speak, of course, to it because I was one of the direct organizers. When the City of Victoria decided, without any public consultation, to replace the Johnson Street Bridge, it didn't really make any headway in mainstream media. And there were three of us who got together on another form of social media, a bulletin board, local one called Vibrant Victoria. We got concerned, we came together, we said, can we do something about this? At least start an information campaign. And now how do you do that when you don't have any budget, no money whatsoever? So we did this. We created a WordPress style blog, we created a Twitter stream, we connected with Facebook groups, and that just grew and grew and grew. And one of the major parts of that was when people started to come in and say, hey, I'm interested in what's going on, can you provide some more information? We went back to them and said, oh, hello. How can you help us? Are you interested in taking this a little bit further? Can we use social media to actually create, in a sense, a movement and an action platform? And that actually worked. All these weak links that came in because they were concerned about it actually ended up doing something that was kind of historical for Victoria. So we used a blog, we used Twitter, we used Facebook and emails to raise the issue and create platform as an exchange of ideas. How do we move this forward? And we used the medium to engage these weak ties, and we empowered them. We gave them the tools, we gave them the messages to actually go out there and make something happen. And the result of which was a petition campaign. When the City of Victoria introduced a borrowing bylaw for $42 million, the only way that the community could respond to that and stop the process was by gathering 10% of eligible voters under a petition. Now, that's a daunting task. It's never been successful in Victoria, and very few have been successful in British Columbia. But through these weak ties, this group came out and actually collected not just 10% of eligible voters, but 15.4%. And that's us actually delivering the petition. There's another one there. So what does this mean for the other side? For candidates, people running for office. If you look at previous elections and how social media has been used, it's kind of been haphazard. It's kind, in the last federal election, a little bit in the last BC election, there was some play on it. But in terms of candidate and communication staff, media marketing and outreach, it was low on the totem pole. And one of the reasons was the perception that social media is only for youth, and youth don't vote. Well, if you look at this is a Pew Research from this year in August, and it actually shows what's happening. It's mainly a North American graph, but it's very appropriate to Canada. And that is, if you look at the demographic of voters, 35 years plus tend to vote the most consistently, and as you get older, they tend to vote more and more elections. The fastest growing take-up of social media is in the 45 plus age group. These are the people who now have Facebook, Twitter accounts, maybe even their own blogs. They're concerned about what's going on, they want to connect. Over 50% between the age of 35 and 65, according to Pew Research, now have a Facebook account. So think about the power of that and think how that's going to change the election process. As mainstream media is becoming less apparent and less impactful, I would say, especially when it comes to local issues. There's so much going on out there. You know, even our local Times columnist newspaper cannot cover everything that's going on, and that may be of interest to people. Well, social media is a platform where, for instance, you can go out and say, hey, there's something happening in my community, on my street, in my park, whatever. I'm really concerned about that. So how is my local representative going to deal with that? How do I communicate with them? Well, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you might have had to phone their office. You wouldn't speak to them directly most often, or you write them a letter and you might get a response. Social media demands almost instant responses. Excuse me again, this is timing out on me. And candidates are going to have to start working within that medium to convince you that they are the right person for the job. And I think that applies to all levels of government. When you see what's happening, for instance, in the Prime Minister's office, they went from about 25 people on their communication staff under the previous government to under Stephen Harper now, where they have over 100. All they are concerned about is information management. Of course, social media and election campaigns, it can go both ways. You can have a positive response from a candidate can make outreach to a community, have that conversation online, whether you agree with the person or not. At least you've connected. You've found where you stand on various issues. Social media and the internet, of course, have got memories. George Bush with the book upside down. Sarah Palin misspelling a tweet. And can this onion ring gain more Facebook fans than Stephen Harper? So this is going to be a concern for people running for office and also people who are currently in office, and that's something that Russell will be speaking about as he deals with communication for BC MLAs. How do you respond to this kind of interaction on social media, or do you even do that? We can only see what will happen in the future. As I like to say to Keith Martin, and I love this photograph, this is at a party, you can run for office, but you can't hide from social media. So thank you very much. Just want to do a little shout out here. November 20th is the City of Victoria by-election, and anybody, who's from Victoria here? How many hands, right? How many of you actually knew there was a by-election? Fewer people, right? So even our civic governments finding it difficult to reach out and say, hey, this is happening. There's actually also a referendum on the Johnson Street Bridge. Have a shout out, have a look, get a hold of the candidates on social media and see how they respond. Do your own little test marketing out there. Also like to do a shout out to November 10th is the Open Government West BC conference at UVic. And this is talking about Gov 2.0 issues, how essentially the communication paradigm is changing and how the public, you, and government has to change in terms of a culture shift. So I'll welcome your questions at the end of this, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Matt.